My name's Beth Morris and I joined Citizens Advice about 5 years ago as a volunteer, and I started straight away on Adviceline, and at that time Adviceline was still quite new and there wasn't that much training, it wasn't sort of formal or anything, and over the months and even years that followed, volunteers came and went, but I really enjoyed working on Adviceline. And what I found was that as we had new trainees coming in, increasingly I was seen as the go-to person and the experienced Adviceline person, and it became that I sort of acted as a lead assessor. So when people had issues either with a client question or with how to operate Petra or how to write something up, they always used to come to me. And in the end, that sort of lead assessor role evolved into acting more as like a supervisor. We found that this had a really big impact, particularly with the trainees, in terms of their confidence. So when we had the opportunity for the funding for the project, it seemed like a really good opportunity to take this model of the volunteer supervisor and test it. So when we were successful with the funding, we thought, right, we'll recruit some more volunteers and get them to test out the role as well. So that's what we've done.
I think it is easier to work through a lot of the time having a supervisor in the room, because if there's just a small point, you can literally just turn around and say, hey, is this? And it can be like yes or no.
So it's a better client journey as well, because they're not held on for so long.
Yeah, I mean, with having to go downstairs and having to share a supervisor with the face-to-face assessors or advisors, you've got to go downstairs. You felt like you needed more information to actually justify the trip downstairs, because you'd have to kind of wait a few minutes to actually kind of get to the supervisor, and then you'd have to kind of run through the situation that you've got. Whereas if you've got a supervisor in the room, they've generally got like one ear out and kind of hearing the gist of what's going on anyway. And even if they don't, you can just kind of turn around, grab them for a second and just have this one point answered and then go back to what you're doing.
One of the things that I do find awkward is what I don't like to do is keep the client waiting on the phone longer than necessary. I feel it's, I mean, having my own experience of ringing banks and building societies, it's not like nice to be kept waiting, holding on.
Yeah.
So I try to keep the process moving as quickly as possible.
Okay.
So from that point of view, it is easier to have a supervisor on site.
Excellent.
It makes such a difference having someone you can just turn around and ask the question, and half the time they've been listening into the conversation anyway, so sometimes they'd be ahead of me, which was great. From my point of view, occasionally you'll get a call where you just think, I have no idea where to go with this one, completely out of my depth, obviously partly because I'm new and partly because I knew nothing about the question very often. So just being able to have someone in the room,
so you can just put the person on hold, turn around, and you know
get
you're
the
speaking
help
to
and
someone.
advice you need and go back to them. It's made a huge difference.
So.
We have mixed reactions sometimes with Adviceline, but on the whole people do enjoy it, and particularly when there is a supervisor in the room. We're very lucky that we've got some volunteers who have stepped up to take on this role and learn how to be a supervisor.
I've been doing the roles for about 4 months now. I've been on Adviceline myself for over 2 years, and I've progressed into the role of supervisor from July, August of last year. Here in Letchworth, we've got the session supervisor who's actually located on another floor. So if you need any sort of advice and support, you've got to go off and find the session supervisor, possibly queue up, because we're also providing face-to-face support, and therefore you lose the momentum. And in the meantime, we've got a client hanging on the phone, paying for that call, who doesn't know what's going on. And the more we can actually provide a more quality, client-centric focus service, and by doing that is providing all the tools necessary for the people answering the phone in that room, the better the overall service will be. So me personally, when I was on Adviceline, I found that a great benefit to have somebody there to
Yeah.
to talk to
Yeah.
about what's on the phone and what solutions we can provide to the client, but also helping build my own confidence, because there's nothing as isolating as being on the phone on your own and you're bombarded with phone calls. So there's a whole wealth of benefits. You always need to know, be more aware of additional resources and where there's support, because everything's changing, benefits are changing. You know,
You have to be even more proactive.
Changing. So
Yeah.
as an individual, we're no different from anybody else. It's an ongoing process of learning and development, and you learn by on-the-job training as well as secondary training through the various training departments. So it's an ongoing process.
I think it's going well so far. I mean, the other reason for doing it, I felt very, very supported in my training. I've only been with the Bureau just over a year now.
Yeah.
I got so much support. I would like to give some of that back to the Bureau, and if being the supervisor and helping the others coming through the system, that I'm more than happy to do that. It's still a work in progress. There are more changes coming in as the months go on, and I will receive more training as the new parts of the process kick in. I've got no doubt about that. As the clients phone in, new challenges come up, new things come up all the time.
The more experienced you become.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things I like about the role, is that it's always different. No session is the same.
It's a few more weeks on since we spoke last, so how's the role of supervisor on Adviceline going?
Yes, it's going very well. There has been a change since last time, whereas before I was taking calls and helping out my colleagues. Now I've been asked to just be the supervisor. I've been given a specific project to do, and I support my other colleagues totally. So that's a bit different, and I'm not, unless there's no other advisors, I'm not taking calls. But I'm able to give more of my attention to my colleagues and therefore be a proper supervisor. And I think they benefit from that as well.
You've now been working in the role as a volunteer supervisor in North Hart's Citizens Adviceline room for a few months now. Can you tell me how it's going?
Yes, I think it's going very well. I've been doing this about six months now. What we essentially do is make sure that somebody's in the room with volunteers who are manning Adviceline, and they provide support and encouragement and a resource the same as any supervisor would do. But the benefit of having somebody in the room is there's a more immediateness to it, to help our volunteers, help people manning Adviceline, to provide the advice to our clients, provide the information to our clients in a quicker and more efficient way.
Even though the volunteer supervisors don't have the same accountability as the paid supervisors, they're treated the same in terms of how they're valued. They are offered the same training opportunities, they come to our monthly supervisor meetings, and their input is valued just as much as that of the paid supervisors.
So I think the volunteer supervisor model that we've been testing and evaluating worked really well for us here at North Harts. By introducing it, we've actually been able to give our volunteers a progression route. They are responsible for the Adviceline session that morning or that afternoon, but they're only responsible for that, and they've always got the staff daily supervisor that they can refer to and defer to if they need to. So.
I'm a duty ASS, so I supervise sessions. I really like it when we have a volunteer supervisor in the Adviceline room because it means that I'm not being pulled in two different directions. It means that the Adviceline assessors don't have to come and wait in a line to come and see me. Obviously, we like to see Adviceline and our face-to-face service as two equal channels, not that one is more important than the other. And having a volunteer supervisor really helps reinforce that. We can have a supervisor in the room with the Adviceline people, which means that we're viewing it as being just as important as downstairs, where we have the supervisor of the day in with the face-to-face. volunteers. It's much better for the clients, I think, that we have a supervisor in the room with the advisors, because they get a more immediate service. It also means that even an experienced volunteer who might think that they've found a really good page on public site, I'm sure, you know, it's great. However, the supervisor may know of some more broader resources, things that go a bit deeper, which means the client is getting a better service. At the end of the day, I am still accountable for that session. The GTASS is accountable for the quality and what happens on that session, so it's important that you don't abdicate all responsibility for Adviceline, even if there is a supervisor up there in the room. I go in and check in and say hi at the beginning and the end of the session, and make sure that they know that I'm there if they have anything that they're struggling with.
I think so. There's a number of ways you can measure it. In terms of our actual performance, what we're seeing is our average call handling time reduced, which is great. So it's a better client experience. Our average write-up time has got better as well. So in terms of how long it's taking to actually help the client, that is improving overall. As we talk to the client has less waiting time as we seek to clarify what information we've got. So it's an overall slicker service which we're providing to the client, quicker, more efficient, and better resolution, I think. So for my own personal development, what it's actually doing is making me think outside of the box, for want of a better description, and actually forcing me to think more holistically in terms of the service we provide, and also helping support our volunteers and people who manage the Adviceline to actually improve, get better, and get more confident in themselves.
So you find